All right, we've got our next example. We're going to work on rewriting a formula, but we've got a little word problem to read first. So let's see what this is about. The suspension cables from the Golden Gate Bridge's towers are farther above the roadway near the towers and closer to the roadway near the middle of the bridge. So you can see here's the towers. The cables are farther away from the roadway. They have a greater height. And then closer to the roadway right here when we're at near the middle of the bridge. All right, you can figure out your distance from the middle of the bridge, x, in feet, and the height of the suspension cable, y, in feet, at your position by using the equation x equals this whole thing. So we want to remember they said that your distance from the middle of the bridge is represented by x, and the height of the suspension cable is represented by y. Okay, about how far is the cable from the roadway? So that is, how far is the cable from the roadway? That is looking for the height of the cable when you are 200 feet from the middle of the bridge. All right, so what we're gonna do is we have an equation that is solved for x. X represents, if we remember, the distance from the middle of the bridge. Y is representing the height, and they're asking us for the height. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our equation, x equals the square root of y minus 220 divided by this decimal, 0.010583. And because they're asking us for a height measurement, we're going to take this equation and solve it for y. Once we have the equation solved for y, we can answer any question about the height of the cable at any time. So to solve this equation for y, we are going to undo this divided by the decimal. So the opposite of dividing by that decimal is to multiply by the 0.010583. We're going to multiply that on both sides. Okay, so right now we have on the left side of our equation 0.010583 times x is equal to, those decimals cancel on the right, leaving us with the square root of y minus 220. All right, so we are solving for y. At this point we have an isolated radical, so we are going to square both sides to undo the square root. Now when we square the left side, we're going to square this decimal and we're going to square the x. So if you square that decimal, you get a 0.000112, and when you square the x, you get x squared. On the right side, the square cancels out the square root, leaving us with y minus 220. And then our last step in rewriting this formula for y is we're going to add 220 to both sides. That's going to leave us with the y alone on this side. So I'm just going to go ahead and write y equals first. And then we have this 0.000112x squared plus 220. So now we can answer any question that's asking us how far is the cable from the roadway, kind of that height. So the question is about how far is the cable from the roadway when you are 200 feet from the middle of the bridge. X represents your distance from the middle of the bridge. So we're saying that x equals 200. So let's plug in 200. So we have y equals 0.000112 in parentheses 200 squared plus 220. All right, so you can grab your calculator and type this in all at once, as long as you promise me you're going to use parentheses around this 200. When you do that, what we get back for y is 224.48. It's a little bit rounded right there. So we're going to say y, which is the distance the cable is from the roadway is 224.48 feet. So when we are, just to recap, when we are 200 feet from the middle of the bridge, the cable is 224.48 feet above the bridge.